My best friend slept with my boyfriend at 18 just to prove she could. Then came back 17 years later, calling my 16-year-old son mature for his age and texting him, "When you turn 18, everything will be different," when I told her to stop or else I'd make her. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're just jealous he talks to me." I just stared at her, already planning on ruining her life. Mia and I were best friends from age 8 to 18. She was always the wild one, dating older guys and getting us into trouble while I kept her from completely self-destructing. She had this thing about going after people she couldn't have. Our friends' older brothers, our married history teacher. Nothing ever happened, but she loved the power of making men want her. So when she slept with my boyfriend of 2 years, just to prove she could, I wasn't surprised. I cut her off completely. That was 17 years ago. Fast forward to 3 months ago. She messaged me on Facebook. She'd been through therapy and wanted to apologize. She was some hotshot marketing executive now and never had kids, which she said was her biggest regret. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet for coffee. She seemed genuinely different and kept asking about my son Ethan. He's 16, brilliant at coding but awkward with girls. When she commented that shy boys are always the deepest, something felt off, but I ignored it. She started coming around, bringing Ethan expensive gaming gear and offering tech industry connections. Ethan, who barely talks to adults outside the family, was immediately drawn to her for some reason. They played online games late at night, and I'd find them laughing on the couch, sitting way too close. She kept telling him how mature he was, buying him cologne because girls notice those things. Then she accidentally sent him a suggestive photo meant for her dating app. She apologized in our group chat but privately asked Ethan if she looked good for 35. When I confronted her about boundaries, she gaslit me, saying I was projecting and just jealous that Ethan finally had a confident female influence. After a big fight, she stayed away for a week, then came back crying and promising to respect boundaries. For a month, things seemed better. But then Ethan started being secretive with his phone and wearing the cologne she bought. I checked our phone bill and found hundreds of texts to an unknown number. When I confronted him, he admitted it was me on a burner phone. She told him I was controlling and didn't understand their special connection. The texts made me physically sick. She was using textbook grooming language, telling him he wasn't like other boys and that she had feelings she shouldn't have, but that when he turned 18, everything would be different. At Ethan's basketball game last week, Mia showed up uninvited, taking photos from the stands. After the game, she whispered something to him that made him blush. His friend Marcus pulled me aside and showed me texts where Ethan was planning to meet someone special at a hotel for his 17th birthday. Marcus begged me not to tell Ethan. He snitched but said he thought it was gross how Mia acted around him. When I confronted Ethan, he broke down. He admitted Mia told him she was falling for him and wanted to celebrate his birthday privately but would wait until he was 18 to make it official. I hired a PI who discovered Mia had been fired from her last job for an inappropriate relationship with a 19-year-old intern. She specifically targeted young men with single mothers and had searched out divorced women with teenage sons on Facebook to reconnect. I knew I had to protect Ethan, but I also wanted Mia to face consequences. So I pretended not to know about the hotel plan and invited her to a birthday dinner the night before, saying I was taking Ethan on a trip that weekend. I spent days collecting evidence and met with what I thought was just a family lawyer. Then, at dinner, Mia showed up with an expensive gift, calling Ethan handsome and checking her phone constantly. She mentioned having plans later, which made me sick knowing what she meant. I was trying to act normal when two people in suits approached our table. They flashed badges. One was a detective, the other from the DA's office. They said they were there about solicitation of a minor. I was completely shocked. This wasn't my plan. I realized my ex-husband must have gone to the authorities when I told him everything. Mia went ballistic, screaming that I set her up and didn't understand what I'd done. As they dragged her out, she yelled there was no proof she did anything wrong. I hated to admit it, but she was right. The bare minimum I had was enough to start a case, but I needed to record their meetup at the hotel. The detective said they needed to speak with Ethan and me the next day. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying every interaction, wondering what I'd missed. The detective Catherine called early and asked us to come in at 10:00. Ethan was quiet during breakfast and wouldn't look at me. His eyes were red. I made his favorite pancakes with chocolate chips, but he just pushed them around on his plate. On the drive to the station, He finally asked if he was in trouble. His voice cracked. I told him absolutely not, he was the victim. He started crying, saying he felt stupid and embarrassed. I pulled over and hugged him. I told him predators are good at what they do, and none of this was his fault. I reminded him how smart and kind he is and how Mia took advantage of that. At the station, they separated us. The building smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant. I went first and told them everything I knew. Catherine, with kind eyes and graying hair, was patient but thorough. I gave her the burner number and screenshots of texts. Then it was Ethan's turn. He looked pale under the fluorescent lights. When Catherine asked if he wanted me in the room, he nodded. She started easy. How they met. What they talked about. Ethan was honest about the gaming, the gifts. His voice grew stronger. But when she asked about the texts, he got quiet again. Catherine reassured him he wasn't in trouble. Then Ethan did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone and opened a hidden folder disguised as a calculator app. Inside were dozens of photos, not just suggestive but explicit. My stomach dropped. Catherine's eyes widened. She put on gloves and took the phone. A forensic specialist was brought in immediately. Catherine asked when the photos started. Ethan said about 3 weeks after Mia got the burner phone. They escalated from selfies to graphic content. She'd send them late at night with messages about their special connection. The specialist found over 40 photos plus videos I didn't know about. Catherine said this was everything they needed. Mia would likely take a plea deal to avoid trial. I felt relief, but also guilt. Ethan had been carrying this alone. We left the station at 3 o'clock. Ethan hadn't eaten, so I took him to his favorite burger place. He barely touched his food. Later that night, Daniel, my ex-husband, showed up. We argued in whispers in the kitchen until I told him to leave. Ethan didn't need to wake up to more chaos. My phone was full of missed calls and messages. Word had spread. I turned it off. Ethan couldn't sleep. At 2 o'clock a.m., I found him on his computer looking at Mia's Facebook page. I closed the laptop gently and offered warm milk. We sat at the kitchen table in silence. The next morning, Catherine called. Mia had been arrested. She tried to run. They caught her in the parking garage. She was being held without bail. Her lawyer was already negotiating. Later, Mia's mom called, hysterical. She begged me to drop the charges. I explained I couldn't, it was out of my hands. She screamed at me before I hung up. We fell into a strange routine. Ethan went to school, came home, locked himself in his room. I made dinner, and he ate just enough. Marcus came by, but Ethan wouldn't see him. Eventually, Catherine called with an update. Mia's plea deal: 2 years in prison, 5 years probation, and lifetime registration as a sex offender. Ethan cried when I asked what he thought. He didn't want her to go to prison but didn't want to see her again either. We started therapy with Dr. Sarah Lynn. Her office was in a sunny house with a garden. Ethan was nervous, so I went in with him. She was kind and calm. She said what he experienced was trauma and it would take time. After that first session, Ethan seemed lighter. Over the next few weeks, things improved. He rejoined the robotics club. He smiled more. He even hung out with Marcus again. But Mia wasn't done. She created fake Facebook accounts and tried to contact Ethan's classmates. One girl named Megan sent screenshots to the school counselor. Catherine got a restraining order. 3 weeks before the plea hearing, Ethan decided to write a victim impact statement. He worked on it with Dr. Lynn. He wouldn't let me read it until the night before the hearing. That morning, he wore his only suit. At the courthouse, he sat between Daniel and me. When they called Mia's case, she appeared in an orange jumpsuit, looking small and tired. She pled guilty. The judge invited Ethan to speak. He read his statement. He spoke about trust, confusion, and manipulation, about feeling special and then feeling dirty, about never trusting the same way again. When he finished, there wasn't a sound. Even the bailiff looked shaken. Mia cried. She apologized, said she was sick, that she never meant to hurt anyone. The judge accepted the deal. 2 years in prison, 5 years probation, lifetime registration. As Mia was let out, she looked back once. Regret? Sadness? I'll never know. Ethan cried afterward, relief this time. We got burgers again. He finished every bite. Life is returning. Ethan's back at school. Robotics is his focus. He still has hard days, but more often, he's just a normal kid again. We're healing, one day at a time.